Hello everyone. In this particular section, we're going to have three discussions. So, one discussion is with Dr. Chaitanya Sridhar. She is going to give us expert psychological strategies which could actually be used by athletes, and we're also going to look at from her experience what are the psychological issues and how have athletes actually coped better with the challenges. And in the second discussion, we're also going to have Santosh, who is a coach from the Golden Age Shooting Academy. He's the founder and chief coach at Golden Age Shooting Academy. He's going to give us his inputs in terms of how can athletes actually manage their injuries better. And the third part of the discussion, we're going to have Dr. Ameya Kagili, who is a consultant sport and exercise medicine doctor, and he's actually going to give inputs in terms of what actually athletes could do in order to take care of their injuries better. So hopefully this is going to be a great learning experience for all of you, because we're looking at every stakeholder and every person who actually supports the athlete in the injury talk about their perspectives.
Hello everyone. Today we're going to be discussing on the psychology of injury. So Miss Priyanka and me will both be having this conversation. So hi Priyanka.
Hello ma'am.
Hi. So let's begin a little with a recent athlete that you've probably worked with who is just coming back to what we call RTP, right? Return to play. So and how were you able to help, or was this athlete actually employing mental skills while returning back to play? So let's begin with that.
Yes, I think this particular athlete has been using certain skills which could be useful. Like, for example, one thing that we saw and observed in the session was why he's getting frequently injured.
Right.
The reason that we came about was that he has been feeling extremely lonely, and somewhere he's been getting a lot of support from the medical team. And yeah, and we had to really look at how he can incorporate social support in his everyday life,
Right.
because he is over relying on others for his own support.
Yeah, and I like this example that we've started with, because I think for the audience and for those taking the course, it's very important to realize that every single athlete and every person who's injured wants to recoup. But what we also need to remember is there are unconscious factors which are playing, and that's the example which was spoken about. And I think that's a brilliant example that and kudos that you all were actually able to identify.
Yeah.
So it's basically a sabotage, which we'll come back to a little later in the discussion, right? So that's brilliant. And I think something that I have seen is athletes don't make that effort to connect. Let's say it doesn't necessarily have to be a psychologist. If you go to a psychologist, great, but get some support, because that's the example you're talking about.
Yeah.
And also of late there's a lot more support. Like I know it's one of the really bittersweet memories that I have from my career. I was collecting during my PhD, I was collecting data, and there was one of these, so it was from a first class cricketers in Australia, and I got this, it's in my inventory, and he said, I'm so glad you're doing this, because it's so essential to be able to speak about such things, and thank you for doing what you're doing. And he was recouping from an injury, and it was a weekend, I remember, and it had come in my mail, and I opened it, and then I went to tell my supervisor, and he's like, didn't you hear in the news this guy had a massive cardiac arrest and passed away?
Okay.
And it kind of hits you as to, when things are going well, we've been discussing this in a lot of the units that we're talking, there are a lot of people to support, and going by your own example of the support, right? It's very, very vital to support an athlete in this phase, because it's not just the physical injury, right? Like, let's look at some of the what happens to an individual mentally. I know I can talk about it myself, but emotionally, there are a lot of challenges, because for an athlete, there's so physical, they're so into training, they're so busy in a good way, and basically you're so fit, and then you're restricted, especially let's say after an
Yeah.
injury or a surgery.
Hmm.
So yeah, so let's delve into that.
I mean, you've had a surgery yourself, so I
I
am
knew you were
thinking,
going to say that.
yeah, and I know that. I mean, it's been a challenge, right, in terms of coming back and making your comeback in terms of doing things that you could normally do without the knee injury. So, how have you coped? Like, what are the strategies you have personally used?
It's like the psych getting quizzed about. So yeah, I think thank you for that, and it really is a tedious task. It's like,
Yeah.
I think I'm just around 5 months after my
Hmm.
surgery, and I'm letting go of the stick. So
Hmm.
I think what I've learned, and I remember, when they told me a surgery, um it doesn't hit you till post surgery, actually,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
surgery is really the first step,
Hmm.
and then you realize how dependent you are, how stuck you are, how um, emotionally vulnerable you are, and, and
Hmm.
and most importantly, you're not able to do a lot of things, at least for 1 month,
Yeah.
right? And I think your support system plays an extremely important role.
Hmm.
And I have to mention Dr. Chirag Tonse, because
Hmm.
he was my surgeon, one of the leading surgeons in the country.
Hmm.
And when I fell down, right, obviously I wasn't thinking it was this bad. Like, that's
Hmm.
that's the hope we all have,
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
and and then, of course, then we knew it was a surgery. But I very clearly recall till date, he said, okay, fine, you're going to be starting after 2 months, partial weight bearing, after 3 months, full weight bearing, and in 4 months you go, or whatever, he gave me
Hmm.
that
Hmm. Hmm.
timeline. And that's what I focused on, right?
Hmm.
And then, of course, it's on based on your union as well. Like,
Hmm.
and then there was a little bit of delay in my whole process. But like, we talk about the process, right? Like, here the end also becomes very important, because
Yeah.
I'm looking at, okay, I'm going to start walking, because you're on a
Hmm.
crutch, you're on a walker. And trust me, Priyanka, there have been days when I'm going, like, I remember they told me you can get off
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
crutch and walking stick in, like, I
Hmm.
think 2 weeks, and 4 weeks leave everything. And I asked the team, I said, are you sure?
Hmm.
Because I really wasn't able to see. And I think,
Yeah.
and then I had put down. So how we talk so much about visualization and
Hmm.
putting out the intent. So I always keep these taglines, and I till date remember I had put it down, like,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
from
Hmm.
today you can, like, stop the braces,
Yeah.
and then the date when, like, let go.
Hmm.
And that was the day I actually, whatever, took my baby steps, though it was,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
to an outsider it looks pretty bad.
Yeah.
So I think it is emotionally, you really need to also process,
Hmm.
I would say, hold space for everything you're feeling.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes you really can't,
Hmm.
people around you supporting can't. And I think it becomes very vital to have that, talk to a therapist, talk to your
Hmm.
analyst, and also go, your physio has to happen.
Hmm.
It's immensely painful,
Hmm.
but then why you're doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that, and then, I mean, thankfully, being in sport, I've really had a lot of support from,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
like I remember my JSW doctor telling, everything you start, ma'am,
Hmm.
it's always going to be difficult.
Yeah.
So, and he's like, and that's how your first year is going to be. So,
Hmm.
like, now I'm doing steps, right? And
Hmm.
I remember I had to hold both ends in the beginning,
Hmm.
and now I can actually let go of both. I just need a
Hmm.
little.
Hmm.
So, it's these small victories, small
Hmm.
journeys. And when I could stand, I mean, I probably looked really bad, but I remember telling everyone and putting it up, because these are victories you
Yeah.
celebrate.
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
very
Right.
essential.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think on that note, I think I'd also like to focus upon athletes who don't seek help,
Hmm. Hmm.
athletes
Hmm.
who
Hmm.
don't process.
Hmm.
And what do you feel about them?
This is a very interesting question, because if I have to look at it from a very from a psychologist standpoint, I think that will have an impact on the other areas of life to a
Yeah.
very large extent, right? I mean, there can be frequent re-injuries, or you know, it can have an impact probably in the relationships that they share with other people, or maybe in the work,
Yeah,
or in
yeah.
the educational aspect. So maybe it will have to come out one or the other way.
Yeah, you're right.
Mm.
You're right. I remember working with one of these young.
Mm.
It was not the academy I consult. It was someone from outside,
Mm.
and he was so resistant,
Mm.
and I was suspecting also an underlying depression over there. But
Mm.
I was feeling so bad that I know this, and it's a really tough space he's in. But he would give me monosyllables. I'm
Mm.
okay. Oh, you have to make
Yeah.
sense of it. You have to. So it took a while,
Mm.
and somehow slowly made some progress, because
Mm.
like you're saying, sometimes the injury takes longer.
Mm.
It's with best intentions, it's also very dependent on you,
Yeah.
as in not just your rehab process but also how your body recoups.
Mm.
And I think it's essential for athletes to really at that point go, yes, I will come back, but
Mm.
I need to give myself that time to recoup.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's very essential.
Mm.
I remember one of these younger guys who got injured. He was lifting, and
Mm.
the weights has fallen on him.
Mm.
He's ignored it and gone on,
Okay.
and that
Okay.
resulted in him actually
Mm.
getting injured more badly.
Oh. Okay.
And I asked him, I said, you need to respect your body.
Mm.
We're in sport, right?
Mm.
If you don't respect your body, how's it
Yeah.
going to happen?
Absolutely. I
Right?
agree with you.
Yeah. Shall we look at some of the self-sabotaging that we see, especially, or we tend to hear a lot
Yeah.
with injury?
Mm.
The first that comes to my mind is this tagline or the storyline of I don't deserve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember this one particular athlete used to get injured right before the competition.
Yeah.
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 And the more you look at it, it's either because I am not good enough, I'm not deserving of this particular thing which is actually happening to me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you have some other fears that you will talk about, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
In fact, this I wanted to give one example. It was a very young state cricketer,
Mm.
and right before, every time what you're saying, my
Mm.
heart would break every time before competition, and he would be bowling so well,
Mm.
bang.
Yeah.
And at certain times it's also been freak injuries, if I may
Mm.
use that word.
Mm.
Like there was this one time where he was fisting, he was
Mm.
fighting with his brother, and he
Mm-hmm.
ended up, the brother being a little heavy, ended up on him,
Mm-hmm.
and he broke his back.
Oh God. Okay.
And that was when I was like, and this boy had a little bit of unconscious,
Mm-hmm.
some things which had happened in teenage and in life,
Mm.
like I don't deserve.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really a prime example of that.
Yeah.
Also, what about fear of failure?
Absolutely. I think that the stress and those fears can be so intense that the focus cannot be on the process, and it can
Yes.
be so much on the emotional intensity that athletes are actually facing.
Yeah.
So,
And here I would also wonder if this athlete is a little on the anxious side that we normally tend to see. And also, is this coming from the your circle, your network, support network?
yeah.
Sometimes knowingly, unknowingly, it really is coming. Like when we see athletes, sometimes you can trace where in the family, especially with younger athletes, is this coming
Yeah.
from which parent, and
Correct.
which. So fear of failure. um and I want to give this one example, okay? Because there was this young boy. He injured himself once. It was his ankle, and then he was so like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? The tournament's coming. And then this is how. And when he returned, there was this really big stone. He didn't see because he was so
Oh,
much. He
okay.
tripped again, re-injured.
Oh.
So and I think to really work through. Listen, yes, the injury is happening, but somewhere you're contributing, no? To begin, I think that really is the work. This discussion really is for people to really look at where, not consciously, okay, but unconsciously, where is this coming about?
Yeah.
And I think, the other one which would come as a surprise is fear of success. I know, every time, I say this, it's like, even, for
Yeah.
like, at talks, people really go, really. So yeah, fear of success as well.
Absolutely, because I think the focus is not on the process, and it's always on, oh, okay, I'll get this kind of attention. Will I live up to that particular attention? Will I be able to make it bigger than what I'm doing? Everybody else is going to expect so much more from me.
Yeah, and can
Yeah.
I cope with it? Right?
Hmm.
Because a leadership role, a captain's role, a leadership role, or comes with a lot more. So,
Yeah.
and I think somewhere this would also be connected to, am I good enough? So,
Hmm.
there's going to be, so, we always say, it's like, you look at a tree, you see this beautiful flower, you see this beautiful fruits. But I think also, when what we need to get into is the roots of what's actually happening.
Yeah.
So once that core is identified, right, then we see the blooming, right? So
Absolutely.
that's very, very essential.
Hmm.
And I wanted to, this question of, sometimes athletes push themselves with
Pain.
pain.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
let's maybe, that's a good way to
Hmm.
wrap up this discussion.
Hmm.
What do you feel about it?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of athletes, maybe they have niggling pain, or sometimes, in the major competitions, they have to play through the injuries.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
something that happens to a very large extent. Like, I'm also wondering, what do you think can be the psychological strategies that people can use? Because
Yeah,
there's nothing else that they can do but to play.
right.
Mm.
I remember this, it was during Khelo India, and one of these boys, he was in his peak, okay? He was one
Mm.
of these, very young athletes. And he was just, I think, few days before, and he was training, and on the track, there was this kid. I don't know from where. And he's like, this kid is going to get injured. So
Oh.
he went, and he's running in speed. No, obviously he's
Mm-hmm.
training. So he saved, put that child, but then I think he ended up hitting himself somewhere.
Okay.
And then he had to get admitted.
Mm.
And then it was okay, it wasn't bad. And he went, and he actually won that race.
Mm.
And what he told me was, he said, ma'am, I was listening to something, and then it said that when you can't use your mind, and
Mm.
you're in, and your body is not in its
Mm-hmm.
best, use your heart.
Wow.
So
That's
it's
profound.
like, I ran with my heart.
Mm.
It's like boxers in boxing, they say dil se khela. That
Mm-hmm.
means, they fought really well, or dil se nahi khela.
Mm.
And I know, I love that example. I just love
Yeah.
what he said, because that's
Wow.
really what it is. No, you
Mm.
somewhere have to go, you have to dissociate from that pain.
Mm.
Like we talk about processing, but like at the competition or at certain points, you have to dissociate.
Yeah.
So I think it definitely, you know dissociation and focusing on something which can get your energy and get you to your center. I think that would really be one of the
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
Is definitely what, and I think, and if you ask me myself, like, I
Mm.
know, I have the habit of listening to certain music, or certain rituals,
Mm-hmm.
and then I go, why am I doing this, what am I doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to have some cue which shifts you from that
Correct.
pain mode to another mode.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I
Yeah,
would
I
say
think
that.
that was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I think that was a wonderful example, right?
Mm.
Is there anything else you would want to add or say in this section?
No, I think
We're
we're
good.
good.
Yeah, good. I hope you all got an idea of, injury, as physical as it is. It's also very important to know there's a lot of emotions involved with it.
Mm.
It is important to process, and then returning to play, get ready.
Mm.
And of course, Priyanka's chunk in the has addressed the rest of it. It's like,
Yeah.
your goals have to go slow, and the whole process. And also figuring that as I return, my mind needs to shift from injury to
Yeah.
RTP to competition. And I want to give this final example. This is one of our, young boxers who's doing very well.
Mm.
I remember, and any athlete for that matter, so I think she had injured her right, if I'm not sure.
Mm.
And so what we tend to do is not use the right. So, the physios would say she's using more of her left, but her right is her dominant.
Mm.
And this is something which happens. So, something that I actually do with athletes is, now what's your story?
Hmm.
Start looking at what's your next competition.
Hmm.
For me, I'm like, where's my next travel? What is my next assignment? So to start looking forward to that, so you
Right.
you know
Yeah.
turn the page and that chapter is over and begin a new chapter. So we hope you enjoyed this discussion. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Today we have with us Santosh, who you already have met. He is the chief coach and also the founder of Golden Ace Shooting Academy. My question to you, Santosh, is you might have met a lot of athletes. You come across a lot of athletes who have been injured.
Mhm.
As a coach, what kind of support will the athletes require?
Whenever an athlete goes through an injury,
Hmm.
right, it's an unfortunate situation that has occurred. So
Yeah.
nobody is expecting this kind of situation. And first and foremost, immediately assess what is going to be the impact of this injury in the entire calendar year.
Hmm.
Right, that's the first assessment we need to make.
Yeah.
So if it's a small injury, then we can work around things and try to get the athlete to recover very fast. Or if it's a longer injury, which is it's going to take a longer time. So it becomes very important for athlete now to the coach now to keep the athlete in a very good mental state.
Yeah.
So staying in touch with athlete during this injury phase
Hmm.
eases the burden on the athlete.
Yeah.
So if the coach is completely cut off, then it becomes very difficult for him to come back. So let's say call every alternate day and say how are you doing. So today listen, this is what was happening in training. Some funny incident happened. So discuss with that, and it lightens up the mood, and it as though gives a feeling to that athlete that he still belongs in the game.
Right.
Right, his coach is still trusting him to come back. Gives that sense of belongingness, and getting the athlete to the venue at times. Sit and watch what others are doing. Sit and discuss with the athlete that, okay, see, this is what I'm doing as coaching. You have a look at it. So that means you are giving the athlete an outside perspective now suddenly.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Now he can't play the game, but he can sit and analyze the game. So he can see others do it, and sometimes maybe pick up some good things up from the what others are doing, or maybe pick up a weakness from the opponent.
So basically, he's not playing the game, but he's still
he's
playing it
still
in the mind.
playing in the
Yeah.
mind. So keeping him in the game mentally is one of the bigger tasks. And second is recovery always depends on fitness, both mental as well as physical fitness. So keeping an athlete physically fit throughout the year helps recovery faster whenever injury happens.
Perfect. Yeah.
So ensure your athletes are always top of their fitness, because recovery happens much faster.
Okay.
So that straightforward. And stop seeing limitations. When the moment some injuries happen, the athlete first thing they want to do is to see limitations, what I can't do.
Yeah.
So coach can give the perspective into, okay, it's an injury, it's just a road hump or a small block in the road. We will slowly proceed, but we'll certainly reach our destination. And also ensure that if possible, it's difficult for coaches to follow up, especially with the injured athletes, because if the coaching tasks are very high, the requirement is
I know
very high.
that is what I'm thinking, because performance is priority somewhere, and then
Correct.
how can a coach balance between these two things?
It becomes
It's
a little
very-
difficult.
A lot of
So
effort is also required.
Lot of effort. So when I say injury not necessarily be something breaking or something damaging. Right, somebody might have suddenly a sciatica issue, where the hip takes the whole load suddenly, whole shift, bearing shift, load shifts, or it could be something internal, right? Infections.
Yeah.
That a lot of athletes go through. They suffer from a lot of infections, and because of these infections, they are unable to give their 100% in the game. It's pain. There's a lot of pain, and there is a lot of aches every time they try, and there's a lot of weakness. They are unable to become fit. And they're not unable to give 100% in the sport because of infections also.
True.
So we don't know what exactly it is. So at all times, try to keep a lively environment around the athlete. Give them positives, and show them what is their potential, and always discuss about future roadmap.
Yeah, future.
So that's what I've done with
Very important.
injured athletes. Most of the time, I just discuss with them. Okay, next if the next 12 months we're getting clean. Without any health issues, without any problems. So this is what we can achieve.
Yeah, perfect.
So is it better to get your surgery done right now or surgery done later? So we discuss things,
Yeah.
Sometimes
So be
we
more
postpone surgery.
involved in the
Correct.
injury process.
So
Right?
sometimes we've postponed certain surgeries. Sometimes we've taken calls in terms of no, we have to get it done right now because the next season is what we are targeting.
Yeah.
So coach being clear in terms of what he can get out of athlete helps planning this injury downtime better.
True. And the other question is, what kind of what do you expect the athletes also to keep in mind, especially when they're injured? What kind of responsibilities do they have to take?
Don't get into bad habits.
Hmm.
Straightforward. One is don't become extremely lazy. Right? Don't start binge watching things, or don't go out with friends. Smoking, drinking is something you could avoid.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't make it a habit, or just because you're feeling very low, don't make it an excuse to do things, wrong things.
Yeah, right.
So
absolutely.
athletes, that's what they do. Just because they're feeling bad, they end up doing even
Worse
worse
things.
things. So it's not going to help
To
you
feel better, yeah,
to feel that
absolutely.
you'll never feel better out of these things. So the
Yeah.
first responsibility is to take care of yourself as an athlete.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself. See, you also as an athlete, it's athlete's responsibility to bring the best out of the coach.
Yeah.
Not only the coach's responsibility to bring the best out of the athlete. Right? If you imagine if 10 athletes are going to torture mentally the coach every day, right? Put up a very sad face every day. He's not going to be in his top
Yeah,
shape.
it's going to affect the mental health of the
Mental
coach
health of
to
the
a very
coach.
large
So-
extent.
So it becomes very important for athletes also to remember that I need to bring the best out of my coach. I
Yeah.
need my coach to be on top of his game when I want him.
Yeah.
So it means I will take all those decisions today, tough decisions today, which is going to help me help my coach coach me better.
Right.
So whatever coach wants, or what is even sometimes unsaid, it's athletes' responsibility to take care of themselves in these aspects.
Okay.
Especially when it comes to friends, and these days what I'm seeing, the major challenges for athletes is they think that going for odd movie is not a problem. Going for, let's say, a party someday, sleeping late is not a problem. 1 day or 2 days. Just a week I'm off, so it's okay. Just a month I'm off, it's okay. So it piles up.
Right.
These things pile up.
So that is a good indicator. If you've been doing that, it's important to cut back on that.
Cut
right?
back immediately on that. It's squarely simple. So you go ask your friends, how many of you want to win an Olympic medal? Right? If 9 out of 10 around you say, yes, I want to win an Olympic medal, you're in the right group. If 9 out of 10 in that group say, I don't want to win an Olympic medal, you're obviously in the wrong group.
Yeah.
So, or it's easy to understand that whatever they are doing, you cannot do.
Yeah.
Because goals are not aligned.
True.
So, if you are also partying, if you are also, spending more time with friends than in the game itself, then obviously it is going to get affected sooner or later.
Absolutely.
Or your expectation of winning an Olympic medal you might not be able to reach it because the efforts are not matching up.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the challenge.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Santosh. I think this is going to help a lot of athletes who would want to come back to the sport and achieve their goals. With this, we've finished the discussion with Santosh. Hope you all have had a great learning from this particular discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dr. Ameya Kagli, and I'm a sports medicine consultant at Ramaiah Memorial Hospital, Bangalore, and a few other places in the city itself. I've been asked this question regarding sports medicine and injury and how it is, related. So coming to something like a first responder, or when there's a collision or something happening on sporting field, the first responder obviously would like to be a doctor. But if it's not there, then any paramedical staff, be it the physiotherapist, nurse, a well-trained nurse, or even an experienced coach sometimes can attend to the athlete. But I'm a little skeptical of non-medical people getting involved because they have their own theories and own experiences. For example, if there's something like an ankle twist or an ankle sprain, I've seen people just go and make the situation bad to worse. So ideally, sometimes not doing anything is the best thing that one can do. It's better that a medical person is there, but if it's not there, then it's just too bad. An event of high intensity should not be held if there is no medical person around, or if there is any untoward incident, it has to be taken to the nearby hospital or any PHC or any healthcare training center. Then the second question what was there is how does one define a difference between a soreness and fatigue or an injury as such? The short answer is that the duration, but I'm just oversimplifying it, so please don't quote me on this. But generally, a soreness is after a high intensity or even a moderate intensity or something new, or the athlete is coming back after a non-competitive phase of training, and then he's slowly, gradually building up pace and loading. So that is the time where he or she might face issues related to soreness. But if that soreness persists and there's not active recovery and passive recovery happening during the post-session period for a longer time, and by longer time again is very subjective, the larger muscles need larger time to recover, the smaller muscles need that much less. So it's a fine line, and it all depends on the history, the workload of the athlete, the recovery period, and only then we can conclude ki, oh, this might not be soreness and this can be something else and may lead to this thing. So one must understand that fatigue and attaining fatigue is not a bad thing at all. In fact, the body needs it. If the body doesn't fatigue or doesn't mild sore, that means you can continue go on until breaking point, and then you break, right? So it's something called as a negative feedback mechanism, where issues like fatiguing is required, but just that you have to see that you need to recover well also, and you have to fatigue, and you want to delay the fatigue. It's not that you don't want it, you want it, but at a later period of time. In other words, you're building stamina. Right? So generally think about duration. If it's lasting for 2-3 days, your athlete complains of pain in a particular area and not being 100%, then we need to investigate further. But if the athlete is recovering and doing their daily tasks day to day, I think you can just focus a little bit more on recovery, and then be good. The third aspect is how do you say whether it's physical or psychological? Now it all depends on the level of athlete, the level of competition, the mental makeup of an athlete. Like it's not just for athletes, like us humans, lay people. It differs, right? Like my mindset, yours. We differ in the way we think, in the way we approach things. Even if there's a situation A, there are maybe 10 different ways to look at it. So again, the same way in the athlete, it depends on which part of the competition is he on. Is the selection tomorrow? I don't see athletes coming to me just a day prior to selection because they don't want to be deemed unfit and hence not selected. So that is one thing which they play. They carry through the pain, and then if there's an important tournament coming up, a World Cup or an Olympic event, so even if they're carrying very not, I won't say very very serious, but enough that will nag and ache and may reduce the performance also, that time they won't come. And on the other side is that if they have to it's an off season and there's a compulsory training and the athletes are like, no, I don't want to do it, so then that could be psychological. So the longevity of the support staff with a particular athlete to understand the mindset and a detailed history and a good clinical examination, and if need be thereafter the investigations, be it an X-ray, MRI or something, those all should collaborate and corroborate your evidence as such, and then you get a final picture, and then you can actually label it as physical or psychological. And it's I mean, again, as I said, it depends on the athlete. You can't have the same mental makeup of a 14-year-old girl who's just starting off and a 35-year-old veteran who's played like 300 matches for India. Both know how to their respective bodies behave differently. The experienced athlete obviously has seen those up and down, and he knows or she knows what to do in that kind of phase. And newer athlete may not be able to cope with that kind of pressure. But that's what the whole sports science and sports medicine team is there for, to sensitize these people and to make them understand how their body works, or just not understand, make them more aware of their own body. Actually, I believe each individual is the best judge of his or her own body. We are just here to make people aware of them and maybe objectify some data. With this, I hope this helps you in your lecture series, and thank you very much.